AI is a tremendous disruptor. What is it doing to trust? And I will tell you that although it's the biggest disruptor, we found it wasn't the biggest trust breaker. Every single interaction we have, whether it's human to human or from a digital lens, trust is either being built or eroded in any given moment. There's a lot of information we can gather because of everything we've already said to have that place of trust building in a really meaningful way. That takes more effort to understand what's really going on inside that organization or with that individual. There's a lot of belief that trust is important, and yet simultaneously, people are taking actions that are completely counter to that.
Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the From the Heart Business Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we're on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Darrell Amy.
Hiring salespeople based on a resume or a great interview is like drafting players based on their Instagram highlights. They look amazing in the clips. That's until the real game starts.
Exactly. Every CEO's been there. The interviews go great. You think you're bringing a top performer onto your team, but once they hit the field, they can't close, won't prospect, and blame the leads.
That's exactly why we recommend Sales Index Unlimited Candidate Assessments. It's your sales recruiting engine that screens every candidate against 21 proven sales competencies, benchmarked against 2.5 million sales professionals worldwide. That is more than a personality profile. You'll know with confidence who can sell and who will actually do the work.
Because the best teams don't just fill positions, they build a bench. They're always scouting for great players who can perform under pressure.
For just $2.99 a month, you can build your own bench of ready-to-sell talent, coachable, driven, and proven before they ever get the jersey.
So stop guessing, start scouting like a pro.
Go to unlimited.salesindex.ai. That's unlimited.salesindex.ai and start building your next sales all-star team today. Hello and welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Darrell Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
Hey, what isn't going on? Our foot's right on the gas pedal, Darrell. It's hot and heavy here at Selling from the Heart. We're going to have a great time today here with our guest, Darrell.
We're going to spark some trust with our friend Kim Bohr. This is going to be an amazing conversation. Hey, thanks for joining us today. We absolutely love the global community of sales professionals that are saying, yeah, I believe in being genuine, being authentic, building trust. That's how I define sales. That's how we define selling from the heart. And we've got friends all over the world. So thanks for joining us today. And who are we giving a shout out to today, Larry?
Oh, I remember the first time I met this person, and we've just struck a deep friendship ever since. Mr. Matt Nelson, I appreciate you. It's been way too long, but thank you for reaching out and introducing me to somebody. I appreciate you. I just want to say I'm thankful to have you in the Selling from the Heart community.
Hear, hear. Absolutely. Hey, today's guest brings a critical perspective for anybody leading or selling in today's constantly changing environment. How do you navigate disruption without breaking trust? Kim Bohr is the president and chief operating officer, and now chief executive officer of SparkEffect, where she works with executive teams to align strategy with human-centered practices that actually drive performance. With over 25 years of cross-functional experience, and I'm having a moment. COO or CEO? My notes say COO. That's wrong, isn't it?
CEO.
Okay. Hey, producers. So sorry. We're going to pick back up and get this intro, and we're going to nail it. We'll see you in just a second.
Thank goodness for producers.
That's right. Well, today's guest brings a critical perspective for anyone leading or selling in our constantly changing environment. How do you navigate disruption without breaking trust? Kim Bohr is the president and chief executive officer at SparkEffect, where she works with executive teams to align strategy with human-centered practices that actually drive performance. With over 25 years of cross-functional leadership experience, Kim helps organizations lead through moments that often create friction. Things like AI adoption, restructuring, leadership changes, doing all of this while keeping trust intact and teams aligned. At the core of Kim's work is the trust elasticity framework, a powerful way to evaluate and strengthen trust during times of pressure and change. And for sales professionals and leaders, this could not be more relevant because when trust stretches too far without support, relationships and even results break. And Kim is here with us today. Kim, welcome to Selling from the Heart. It's great to have you here.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here with you both. Thank you.
Well, it's our pleasure. Thanks for hanging out with us.
Yeah, we're going to stretch you a little bit today by beginning with the question we ask every guest on the Selling from the Heart podcast. And Kim, that is, what does selling from the heart mean to you?
Selling from the heart to me absolutely comes down to just a simple test. Do I genuinely believe that whatever I'm offering is going to help this person's work and life get easier? It's that easy. And inside of that is where trust is built. And if my answer is no, or I feel like whatever I'm representing isn't something that feels that is a fulfilling opportunity or connected, then I'm just I'm just pitching something. I'm not really here in service to them.
Mm.
Yeah, I want to zero in on this word connected because we live in this connected society, this connected world, yet there's so much disconnection. And I think it's that disconnection that somehow erodes trust because buyers, and we'll just call, for sake of time, all the titles that are out there, we'll just call them
Mhm.
buyers. They can sense when you're there, but you're not there, when you're connected and not connected. And this all has to do with selling from the heart.
Completely agree. And it's something that I think, sales has this negative connotation to a lot of people. And our job is not to have people already against us when we're first walking in the door. It's really to help us, us to come in a place that can immediately build trust. And there's a lot of noise out there. And it's our job to understand, how do we come in and immediately start building trust in our actions from what we believe in that place of where I come from is really critical in my mind and really the first step.
Yeah, you said earlier that trust is a transfer of belief. I love that definition. And it's been said many, many times over the years that sales is the transfer of belief as well. And so I think this whole thing of, you got to genuinely believe that what you're putting in front of somebody is the right thing for them. Otherwise, don't do it. It's not going to work well for you.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, hey, the elasticity framework. I love this premise. If you boil it all down, I personally believe that everybody in sales sells exactly the same thing. We sell change. Doesn't
Mhm.
matter, what you do. You're asking people to make a change. But the moment, well, we know nobody likes the change word, really. If you survey people and go, do they like change? I don't think anyone would say, a majority would say yes. But in the process of that, how do you maintain trust in the middle of change? This is a very, very fascinating question. And I'm
Yes.
curious to learn today how you maintain trust in the middle of a change that you're recommending or implementing.
So, at the heart, trust is a series of patterns, right? We're looking for consistency. We're looking for how people show up. We're looking for, are they acting in my best interest or their own? And I think that one of the things that we found in this research we did was that there's a lot of belief that trust is important. And yet, simultaneously, people are taking actions that are completely counter to that and that are
Right.
eroding trust. And so we were curious around all this disruption that's happening and all the noise. How do we actually get people to build more trust, especially when we know that trust, just from generally right now, we're seeing a lot of studies that are saying that it's at an all-time low. And so what is it doing inside our organizations? And so this idea of showing up in ways that have authenticity and consistency is absolutely a key. It's not the only pieces. A lot of it has to do with, if we're representing to our buyers something that we really believe in, but yet the messaging coming from the top feels disconnected, that's going to be really tough. And so much of what we're trying to convey is that it's this consistency through how the messaging comes through, but also how we look at it from an open and honest communication perspective. Are we acting in the best interest of others? Are we thinking about, is there real that visible alignment between what I'm telling you we're selling and what you're actually getting and what's happening from what our corporate messaging is?
Hmm.
And somehow I think there's clarity that's woven inside
Mhm.
all of this because something tells me you got to be crystal clear on a consistent basis with your messaging. And if there's
Yep.
clarity or it's wishy-washy, it's hard to be consistent.
It is, and I think sometimes we see, individuals that try to feel like they have to have all the answers and that they have to show up saying that, and that's really, if you don't have all the answers, you should just own it and say, I'm not certain where we stand on that or what's happening or what's going on. Let me go find out." Because ultimately, that idea of the make it till you fake it or fake it till you make it is not, it runs its course pretty quickly in the information age we're in today.
Hmm.
Part of what we were curious when we set out for this study was AI is a tremendous disruptor. What is it doing to trust? And I will tell you that although it's the biggest disruptor, we found it wasn't the biggest trust breaker. But the reality is that buyers are finding information well before we've ever spoken to them. And so we need to be thinking about how is that showing up in their way of vetting us before we're even in contact with them. And so that trust starts at a really much sooner in the process than most of us grew up selling in the times when we were selling even
Hmm.
10 years ago, right?
Yeah. So, what are the implications for salespeople? What should our friends in sales be thinking in the middle of this changing environment?
I think it really is about people probably have answers before you realize that they may not be the full story, they may not be correct, they may be missing, but they'll have done their homework. And so your job again is to really come in and look at how can I make their life better and fill in, perhaps some of the knowledge that they may not have correctly, or they may not see everything that's possible, but understand that they'll have a lot more knowledge before they've even spoken to you. And so it changes how we bring value into that conversation. And so in from a trust building perspective, really thinking about that, bringing in, what's the context of what we're trying to solve for, really understanding and what are we representing, thinking about it from a place of the commitment we're trying to make inside this conversation, and and we can go on from there. But we need to be thinking about this from a perspective that we every single interaction we have, whether it's human to human or from a digital lens, trust is either being built or eroded in any given moment. And by the time we get to them, we may be behind the eight ball. And what do we need to do to show up and earn their trust?
You know, I'm going to bring some humor into this. I don't know why I'm bringing it up, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Now I'm dating myself, Kim, but just bear with me on this. But there's something you said in this connection thing. And I think as salespeople today, whether you're a salesperson or a sales leader, sales manager, is when you
Mhm.
walk into these conversations, I'm thinking about the old days when I used to do connected dots and then I'd color them in and all of that. Is we got to walk into these conversations knowing that sometimes they might be a little bit smarter than we are. They might be a little bit more
Exactly.
knowledgeable than we are. We're there to
Completely.
connect the dots on all of this and facilitate everyone coming together. So it's almost like connect the dots inside of a conversation.
Yeah, it really is. I think how we can all probably relate to walking into a conversation where somebody says, "Oh, I didn't know you guys did that." And you're like, "Oh my gosh, how did you not know we did this?" Like we've been around, we've been in this relationship. And I think we assume that people are always going to be connecting the dots, as you say. The reality is that there is so much information coming at us, and not even from a buying perspective, just in a day-to-day workplace operating perspective, that we can only keep so much of it, right? So our job is to really help them see what they're maybe not able to connect the dots on. So we have to make that more intentional. And we have
Hmm.
to do it in a way that feels like it's building trust. Because ultimately, we having somebody come to us to say, hey, I'm not sure if you guys do this, but it came up in a conversation. And so I thought I would start with you and ask, is the ultimate of a trusting relationship. It
Mhm.
gives us the ability to be that true advisor in a way that we can say, whether we do or we don't, they came to us first. But that has to happen through, as you say, it's connecting the dots, but it's doing it in a way that is, I think here's what I think it takes a lot more effort to sell these days if you're truly trying to sell the way we're talking about,
Mhm.
because there's a lot of information we can gather, but because of everything we've already said, to have that place of trust building in a really meaningful way, that takes more effort to understand what's really going on inside that organization or with that individual. And if we're just trying to simply play a numbers game, it's going to run out pretty quickly.
Mm.
Mm. You know, it's interesting just having a realization here, and I hadn't thought of this before. I started selling at the dawn of the internet and search engine era. So, all along, I think most of our listeners have been used to buyers going on Google and searching and
Yeah.
validating things you were saying and all of that. But to me, what's interesting about AI, and we've always said the role of the salesperson then is to ask great questions. What's fascinating to me about the world we're in with AI right now is AI actually provides answers, but it also asks a lot of really good questions. And I wonder, in a world where we've got artificial intelligence, buyers using it, we're all using it, asking
Yes.
great questions. How does a salesperson fit in that environment? Where's the best fit? Because we're not the only ones asking questions now. And maybe
Mhm.
we're not even the most trusted in the room off the get-go either.
Well, that's what our critical thinking and context are so important. And
Mhm.
also the human to human side that AI isn't able at the moment to replicate, in the sense of, I know you, or I know what's going on with your family, or I understand the complexity of your role because you and I have had side conversations. And so
Mhm.
bringing in those are really truly trust builders. So yes, we use AI to help coach our sales team. Obviously, we use AI to help do research. We use AI to help shorten their learning curve of the most basic stuff that they need to know before they're engaging. But the real learning is happening, and the real questions and things are happening in those live, whether it's Zoom or in person, those interaction moments where we're building trust and we're sharing some of those vulnerable kind of moments that just happen to come out. And we used to have a lot more of that before the Zoom era and before AI. And so I think what can happen is, right now we could get really lazy and use those tools and think we're preparing ourselves. And really that's like, water skiing. It's not like going really deep.
Mhm.
I'm going to bring this up, and this is this critical thinking is there's a dark side of this, and I feel like we just need to bring it out in the open.
Mhm.
There's a lot of salespeople, sales leaders that are hiding behind AI, and I believe it's eroding their critical thinking. And it's
Yeah.
causing what I call conversational incompetence because we're in a very short period of time, we're hiding behind this. And some of that thinking I think we used to do before, we're
Mhm.
not doing right now. We're allowing another piece of technology to do it. Where does this all play in? So, how does
Mhm.
somebody work on their critical thinking and still leverage AI at the same time?
I think so. I have kind of two schools of thought. I think the really successful salespeople have always brought critical thinking in, regardless of what the tools were they had at their fingertips. And those who are really understanding of what relationship selling is, at that level, like truly relationship selling, I think that's always been there. I think, though, because of the nature and the busyness and the pressure of numbers and things that have just increased because of accessibility and the fact that we're just more online and more information, what I think needs to happen is really to step back and say, it is about, do I really understand the problem we're solving for? I may think we have the greatest solution, but do I really understand it? And just because what I have, I know they can use, doesn't mean I understand the problem. And so that critical thinking goes back to, how much do I really understand what's going on, what's more happening and, impacting the macro environment, like getting curious. I think in part it's bringing a stronger business hat
Mhm.
into the thinking of how I'm approaching building this relationship with these individuals or this organization. And so if we're not bringing in some of that, more of that business thinking, that part I think is where we lack that. The critical thinking is not something that we're relying on. I'm always a big proponent of my sales team having a strong business understanding because of those
Mhm.
macro components that come in that impact why a deal is suddenly shifted in some dramatic fashion.
I think it's really interesting. I was just thinking about even earlier this week, we had a realization that inside our business, we have a core business process that used to take 3 hours. Now it takes about 10 minutes because it's been automated. And so I think there's a mindset that goes, oh, we got 3 hours back, but we actually came to the realization of like, no, we have more time now to do deeper analysis of this
Yes.
because most of the 3 hours was just like a notch above busy work. And now we have time to do deeper analysis. And I think as sales professionals, this is where we've got to look at AI in terms of it's not, it's freeing up time for me to be able to add more value, which means like
Mhm.
Larry's saying, we got to put our thinking caps on.
Yep, we do. And when we're moving just so quickly,
Hmm.
sometimes I think there's just this sense of we're forgetting, how do we put that energy in different places? And I think that's going to become so much more critical in how we're truly building relationship
Hmm.
in a way that's, where people want to take us with them type of experience or
Hmm.
refer us or all of that. And it's a test right now because the shiny object isn't going away, I don't think. And it's getting
Hmm.
better and better.
Hmm.
And I think what it's also doing is it's really putting a test on the relational strength that salespeople have with their clients, because I've always
Mhm.
pushed the button on this. Is the relationship you think you have with your clients the
Hmm.
relationship that your clients think they have with you? And I
Right.
think what we're talking about is really bringing this to the surface, Kim.
Yeah. I agree. I know I've always had, whenever I've had sales reps that say, but I have a strong relationship. You're like, but they have never bought anything from you and your quota is not being met, So
Hmm.
there's this idea of like, what does it really mean? And it really is about, to me, it's about like really understanding what's going on in the business and what's going on for the individual and what's the pressure the individual's under. That's the buyer. What is it, who else are the influencers? We did some go to market research last year related to the work we do. And one of the things that was really clear, and it may be intuitive, but it was really, really clear for us, is that there are buyer teams out there now. There's not one person making a buying decision, even though they may say, I'm the buyer. The reality is there's a team of influencing those decisions, whether it's because, well, this is what it means for our piece of the budget, this is how it's going to impact our team. And so if we really think we have one buyer, we're really wrong. There may be one signer, but we have to understand that we have a much larger group to be influencing, that we need to be building relationship with or understanding their pain points, right? Not just the one person that we think we've got this really, that they know it all. They don't. They're representing one perspective that they're coming in from and trying to gather others. And there's a lot, of dynamics that might be where we might be missing some information.
Hmm. Kim, I'm curious from your research. We all know trust is at an all-time low. Usually, sales professionals get put somewhere down with politicians at the bottom of that
Yep.
list. And I'm just curious. Did your research reveal, or like, do people trust AI more than they trust on the average a sales professional? Like, what are your thoughts on that, or
Yeah.
what's your experience been?
Well, we didn't measure specifically against, sales individuals, but what I will tell you
Mhm.
is that there is a varying degree, everybody agreed that AI was the biggest disruptor. And what we looked
Mhm.
at from disruptors were everything from leadership change, layoffs, elder
Mhm.
care, child care, like the big things that we're all dealing with. And of course, we're not dealing with just one of them, right? But the AI was
Mhm.
the biggest of those things. What we know is that there is a lot of concern about AI because of it taking jobs or people not knowing how to use it or just not a real organizations not having a strong strategy and a strong communication plan. And so when we think about it from a sales perspective, I mean, we know that, AI is starting to function as a search engine and it has a ton of information, but it has a lot of things it gets wrong too. And so I think, is when we think about how people can do a lot of their own work, there's, I, people still trust people the most. There's a lot of concern around, AI, and that did show up because what people were looking for in the research we did was their leader to have their back, that they would be given, the real truth of what's going on, that
Mhm.
whatever gets, the kind of that comes from the corporate top of the funnel of leadership actually gets translated into what does that mean for us and our particular team or our clients we serve. And when that isn't happening, that trust breaks immediately. And the biggest break we found was between a leader and their direct reports. So the shortcutting people may want to do from an AI perspective really still needs to encompass this real human to human um, exercise, right? And so that doesn't exactly address your question around sales, but what I would make the connection on is people are going to trust people more when they feel like they have their back, whether that's our buyer or our boss.
Mhm.
Hey,
Mhm.
this is just real simply put, is it's hard to build trust on the inside when there's lack of trust inside. It's going to be really hard to build it outside if
It's
it's
really hard.
non-existent inside.
Yeah. And the gap we found between low trust and high trust organizations is huge. I mean, we saw that it impacts financial performance, it impacts retention, and it impacts reputation. So, for example, just inside organizations that were high trust, their industry reputation was viewed at 97% positive. Those that were part of low trust organizations were at 49%. You think about that from a retention standpoint too, right? If we're in a
Mhm.
competitive, which we all are, in competitive industries that we're trying to retain top talent, we saw that high trust organizations had about a 93% perception of retention rate of top talent versus 52% of low. So this idea of how we represent to our businesses and how we represent to our clients has a direct correlation to our bottom line, which is why the argument we make in this research we did was that trust can be measured and it is as important as any other KPI you're tracking, and it can be measured at the organizational level and it can be measured at the team level, and it should be measured as part of those other indicators we're already doing from that sales lens.
Hmm.
Amazing. Well, Kim, I know our listeners are asking the same question I am. It's like, how do I get more Kim beer in my life?
So I can absolutely be found on LinkedIn at just look for Kim Bohr. We also want to make available to your audience the trust report, along with some guides that will help build trust building exercises that we didn't dive into, but that from a sales lens, whether it's a leader or an individual contributor, they can absolutely bring forward and use. And so they can go to sparkeffect.com/selling and get all of those resources for free and be able to implement them immediately.
Wonderful. Well, Kim, thank you so much. This has been an incredible conversation. We really, really appreciate you sharing your heart and your expertise with us today. Incredible.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Super.
Same.
Wow, Larry, trust so critical, and I love Kim's perspective of bringing just research to this to validate and expand upon what we know about the critical nature of trust. And I think in the world of AI, where things are rapidly being disrupted, we've got to be aware of this as sales professionals, and we got to keep this conversation going.
Absolutely. And just real simple is you're either building it or you're eroding it. Every conversation you're having, I don't care if that's an email conversation, phone, face to face, virtual, it doesn't matter. Every conversation you have, you're either building trust or you're slowly eroding trust.
That's right. So make sure to grab Kim's offers, very generous. They're in the show notes. Just go grab those And let's all be keeping this conversation going around how we build and maintain trust in today's ever-changing world. Hey, thank you for joining us this week. We've got great guests coming up. So I appreciate everybody that's not only liking and subscribing, but also sharing this podcast with your friends, with your peers, with your clients. This movement of authenticity and trust, Larry, it just keeps growing and it's so much fun.
Yeah, it is. And like Darrell said, in the very beginning, this thing's 10 years strong now. And
Mhm.
this was all built for the sales community. So we appreciate you all joining in, waving the flag on Selling from the Heart. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you. And until next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust, get the spark effect going. And most of all,
Sell from the heart.